This is going to be a journey. In a very stereotypical, egotistical journey I'm going to be riding on for minimum 20 minutes. Maximum hour and a half. Well, welcome to what I guess is going to be the very first, no introduction needed, I guess I could say, self-reflection hours. A practice of sorts. Holy shit. A practice of sorts to get me thinking, multitasking, get my brain back into bits, all the nuts and bolts into places, by covering the things that have been plaguing my psyche for the past months, long time, days, weeks. There's a lot that goes on in our heads. There's too much. I don't mean to start off cheesy already, but we're emptying the weeds from our head. We're pulling it out. It's all repulsive. It's disgusting. It's time consuming, but it's necessary. You know, and there's something cathartic about it. Is that the word? Cathartic? I believe it is. Cathartic about just removing the negativity, the evil that comes with all these distortions and ugly bits that come into our lives. Distinctly ones that we so despise seeing, but we so enjoy we're interacting with. I guess it's the best way I can describe it. We enjoy interacting with these negative thoughts so often, but we refuse to admit it. Because we thrive on not being bored. Even the negativity is something that gives us home and is something that's comfortable. We want to be comfortable. I have no idea whose home this is, but I hope they're comfortable. And I think that's, I'll get into that later about comfortability, the ups and downs of that, the positives and negatives that go along with how one defines their life and their self-image, and how one continues to grow past what they assume their limit is. Also, wait, oh fuck, I forgot, that's not the rock. Ooh, cash, let's go. Pockets are full, shit. I'll swap it. Shanty wall? I don't remember what the fuck. There we go. Hey, Roald. What have you been doing for the past 2 months? Why didn't you invite me? Lots of self-reflecting. But yeah, bringing this all back to Animal Crossing. I think the great thing about Animal Crossing that it helps teach, especially this younger audience who, aren't really open to the world. We're open to this world of entertainment. I don't know why I took that up. But we're open to this world of entertainment that just consumes our daily lives. And, we're born into it. It's the American way. It's how society is run. We're all, we're entertainment based. We all have to be constantly brought into light and have to be. We don't want anything to be mundane. We want everything to be fulfilled and purposeful, and we refuse to acknowledge any of the little stuff that goes on because we deem it as annoying, tedious, unimportant. Like talking to Cube here. Yeah, he's upset about bullshit. I mean, in reality, it's text on a screen, and I'm sitting here, and this is just a controller in my hands. But in reality, there's so much that goes into all this mundane bullshit that we always continue to overlook. There's so much that goes into this, every little thing. We refuse to acknowledge, I guess, the side plots, the stories that aren't directly related to us. Our ego forgets that we're so self-centered naturally, which is fine. That's how our brains work. We're literally made to be self-centered. We have to survive. But we forget that every little thing we ever interact with, like these weeds, has something behind it. These weeds aren't just weeds. These weeds are a graphic that is tossed together by art directors, that is put into the game by all the coding teams. It has to get approved by the people up top that's saying, yes, this is a good mechanic. Yes, this had to get planned out far in ahead. Yes, this had to get approved by people saying, yes, I want to make a game where you pull out weeds for a living. And all those people have their own lives and own multiple different things build up their lives so that they make this decision of, yes, I am going to go and I am going to just let this, be a thing. We let it survive, and that's, I think it's fine. We don't have to remove weeds for the sake of thinking that they're totally useless. The mundane... Oh, fuck, I keep forgetting. I'm so brain dead. The mundane that we keep devaluing in our daily lives have so much great strength to them that we forget they're there. We forget that the carpet I'm standing on right now, or sitting, I guess I should say, the carpet that we're sitting on has been through so much to be able to get to this singular point. Every single thing I'm looking and touching and feeling, the air I'm breathing has backstory. It has plot. It has lore. But that's just, everything's gotta have lore. Everything's gonna have lore, for gamer talk's sake. And I think that's something we definitely overlook way too often. And just the fact that, God, I'm just gonna fucking drop all these. We forget the fact that people have lives too, and that we aren't just the only person on Earth that matters, and that if a thing is not directly centered in me and involving me, that it's basically useless and I can forget about. It's a matter of, because I'm rambling on at this point, it's a matter of remembering the fact that I'm, how am I going to word this? I guess it's the idea of, we're always told, it's the cliches of appreciating the little things, because that always goes into everyday life. We just ignore it. Everything we've been told a billion times, we see it a billion times a day. We're just so used to just the utter being of nothingness that we create it to be. We refuse to give into this childlike wonder and be so curious about things because we feel like we have answers to them. Because we feel like we have this utter solidified worldview that has no budging, has nothing you could ever disagree with or ever do anything about, because that's just the way that it's worked for you for the past X amount of time. Politics, same thing. That's just how it is. We just follow these same rules because that's how it is. Don't want to dwell on that for too long. I have trouble gaming and focusing. That's why I'm here. But mainly when it comes to this, for me, I think lots of my main issues is, like I said, that I refuse to go and focus on the little tasks. I spend too much time focusing my brain on this big overall vague goal that we have no set description of. It's just the idea of, I want to be happy, and I want to feel satisfied, and I want to feel like there's some sort of greatness, some great meaning to my life that others apparently don't have, because mine is specifically special to me. There's that narcissism that has to go into this for me to be able to care. Otherwise, if I just treat my life as nothing physically, that's obviously depressing. But also, the narcissism in itself is depressing because you're never able to fulfill that. And when I'm not able to fulfill my inherent narcissism that comes with, I don't think I have anything to do. I don't know why I was here. But when there's something that has to coincide with the narcissism that builds up from trying to figure out what to do with your life when it gets tossed into college and you have to figure out how to react with other people, and everyone's so different and life is so different and we have no idea what our worldview is and we're just tossed into trial by fire. When we're tossed into the fire, we get burnt up real quick. We get burnt out. We get stuffed. There's only one thing we can do, and that is just shut our ears down, close them, and just say, nah, I don't hear this. That's the nature. We develop all of our different defense mechanisms, which is what builds our character. We have these habits. I'm not saying we are inherently our habits. We are more so how we choose and what we choose to allow to be our habits. I think it's a better definition of what, say, outlines a person per se. Is just, what we allow and how we let ourselves define ourselves, because we're fighting this inner ego that goes with that. So how we let ourselves, how we allow ourselves to feel like the world has to be this huge, grand, I have to be famous, I have to have $1 billion, I have to have, my goal has to be to help people with charity. Like, I think having the overall, this is my view, that having one centralized view completely diminishes the points and what makes humanity so great, is that we are so complex by nature. We're more, and our lives deserve to be more than just one centralized moral value. Because there's so much more that goes into it. Like, me pulling weeds has nothing to do with getting bells, has nothing to do with my day, making my mental health fully better, although it is, but that's, you get what I'm saying. This has nothing directly to inherently affected, but it's my decision that is affecting it. I know this is a lot of rambling, but it's my decision that goes into it that allows me to feel satisfied with what is going on. Because the little things like this, I can appreciate and can fill the day up. But lots of the times we like to devalue the little things that we do, the de-stressors, and sometimes we like to glutton them because we like to fill our days up to feel as happy as fully possible, that we don't like to appreciate the mundane. Which, this is what I was trying to get back to on my original topic, is that Animal Crossing is great at teaching people at a young age how to get used to the mundane and how to appreciate the little stuff that goes into all this hard work and patience and all those things that go into teaching us how to not, or how to be bored, and realize that the fact that boredness doesn't have to be boring, in a sense, because the hard work that you get out of it, this product that comes towards it, you may not want to, because I'm a Gen Z, I have a short ass attention span, my brain is really underdeveloped, my social skills are underdeveloped, I had a very recluse, life up to this point. There's only so much I can do about what that's led me to be. Got my own tangent, I got distracted by pulling weeds. But that's what I'm saying when it came back to that. Fuck, I lost my place. We were talking about the boring stuff and how the boring things need to be appreciated for being boring, but being helpful. We don't have to say, ugh, this is boring, this is a task. This is just something that you're just doing, and that's fine. Like, this is just helpful, and you can treat it as the fact that it is something. Is this a lost item, or is that mine? Hot neon paper? No, I left that. I accidentally picked it up. Shit. But it's the idea that all these mundane things have to seem useless, and that they all have greater purposes than we could ever imagine, and they have so much greater strength and storytelling behind them that we forget they're there. Basically, what this is all coming down to is if you're watching this, it's been 17 minutes so far, or like 15 minutes, depending on how I cut it. Basically, what I'm saying is, go listen to David Foster Wallace's This Is Water, and that basically gets a better, more conclusive idea, rather than me spitting off the top of my head, of how I feel, how I've grown to change my worldview and what I value and don't value. We value so much of entertainment 24/7. We value so much of the bim bop bap, which I know is such a boomer thing to say of sorts. That, social media is evil and all that junk, and, But I think it's totally valid. I really don't see too much of an issue with that point. I think there's lots of stuff that proves it. I think there's just a very strong lack of communication skills now that we've developed as a society. There's a very large we're able to intake so much more information now. We have to do it so fast because we have to keep up with the times. There is so much that we rely on. There's so much that we feel like we have to keep up with, that we overcomplicate our lives too much. Hey, Roald. And, oh, fuck, I don't have a slingshot. Shit. Fuck, shit. How do I, crap. How the fuck do I get this down? Yes! What the fuck is it? It's a peach. That's cute. We overcomplicate our lives so much. We forget that when we have all these issues that go through our head, because when we come together and we have, or not just say when we come together, but when we sit alone and we have to face all the noise that comes into our head, a lot of the times when we have these issues, whether it be personal life, worrying about, like how my friend is worrying about him possibly losing his house, and there's so much that goes into it with his father fucking up the rent, and his mother possibly, and his dogs not having houses to live into, and what is he going to do for himself, and how is that going to affect his relationship with his girlfriend, and there's so much that goes into it. That's only just one example. But when it comes to the interpersonal, the big existential word problems, we forget, or I should say, we aren't able to comprehend. We aren't able to come to terms with the fact that lots of the answers that we want to hear are not gonna be the answers that actually solve our problems. There's a large amount of times where it's really simple, and it's disappointing. It's disappointing. It is anticlimactic. Something none of us want to hear ever. Like, I don't want to give an example to ruin context for some things. But lots of the times it's like, okay, well, let's say example, hey, I'm worried about, asking this girl out for the sake of keeping it as simple as physically possible. And the answer is, if you're scared about asking her out and how she's going to respond and how that's going to affect your friend group and everything like that, the answer that we never want to hear is just, okay, well, if you're afraid about literally everything here, the one answer is ask them out. Because that solves everything. If you're worried about how they feel, if they're, actually do like you, if you're just wasting their time and then actually is going to lose anything that goes on with you, the answer usually is just something simplified. And we refuse to, we just don't want to acknowledge it. Because it doesn't sound right. We want some super specific, gratifying, grandiose, we want our lives to be like a movie. And it's nowhere close. Our lives are never going to be anything close to a movie. But we have movie-like moments in our head. I think what it's better to think of life about instead of it being a movie and we're watching it happen. Because there's so much you can control and so much that you can't. Lots of the times it helps to just think about it as like really extreme open world game. Which obviously, because that's what life is literally games are trying to mimic life in that sense. But if we think about it from that way, because it like centers our ground, or at least that's helped me center my ground. Because when I think about it from the centralized, concrete development that comes with the idea, sorry, that's my chair, that comes with the idea of an open world game, is that we're able to interact with everything. And what we try to do is we try to literally explore everything that we can. We try to figure out what the plot is for every single item, every single place we go to. And lots of the time in life, we try to treat it as like a linear story when it really isn't. It's super complex. There's so much more you can go about it. There's a lot more freedom that you think, there's still things that you can't control. But when you have stuff that you can control, that's the only thing you really have to worry about. So like if you can't climb this mountain because they said so, that's not something, you deservedly should get fully upset with, I guess. I mean, you could still be upset about it, but it's not more so, it's not right to feel like, I don't know how the fuck to say this without making it sound really stupid. Basically, it's, you can't affect it, so don't worry about it. And saying don't worry about it leads to lots of more worrying about it. Because we worry that we should be worrying about things. And we get very meta and post-meta. There's so much that we interlace our head with, all these distortions and delusions of grandeur when it comes to how we feel. Because we enjoy the feeling. We enjoy the comfortability. of being upset. Because it's a feeling. Lots of times I would rather be feeling something, even if it's totally upset, rather than feeling absolutely null and apathetic. 100% of the times. We get ourselves into our own heads. We like the idea of being able to be upset over something. And that's what gives it weight and merit. It makes it feel like it's worth our time. And if it's something so simple, we just don't feel like it has this magic to it again. We take away this childlike wonder for things. And that's what I think that's what the mistake is when it comes to the idea of people becoming an adult. We try to make ourselves think that has to do with becoming, fucking Christ. Get the fuck over here, piece of shit. We like to think that it has to do with growing numb to a degree, like we're dealing with bullshit, rather than coming to the idea that we should be accepting and appreciating things as if everything's human of sorts, because everything is human related, at least. The TV, like I said earlier, what the TV was made out of this, that was made by this person who was lived by this person who, possibly was, I don't know, there's so much stupid shit that could go into every little thing we could ever imagine. And that's what the exciting thing is. I think because in media we're so entertained by storylines, I think that the one thing that we need to realize more is that there's a lot more storylines in real life than what's just on the internet or on TV. There's so many more storylines that you can just learn about or even create, hypothetically. It's better to even, because lots of times we get afraid by the storylines that could happen, rather than, again, going through our ways, creating, just adding what we can to the story, and then seeing what builds off of that. Because we'd rather progress. It'd be better to progress our story, do something about it, than it would be to sit and have nothing happen and worry why there isn't a story. This is a lot of mumbo jumbo. I'm very not centered with my thoughts. That is what my issue is. But this whole point is that I'm trying to bring it better. I'm trying to get myself back into speaking mood. This is entirely an exercise. Probably no one's going to see it, which is totally fine. But we're at like the 27-minute mark or something, or like 25, depending on how I cut it. Just like how I said before. But there's so much, like we know, is like we try to keep shit simple in terms of cliches, and we repeat it so much, partly because we don't fully understand it, and we just like to say it because it's buzzwords and it sounds cool and we kind of believe it. But there's a lot more, we degrade and we devalue so much of that. We oversimplify shit to the point where it's lost its meaning. We have totally spread it too thin so that it can be totally, like my brain, I'm trying to say too much at once. We value so many things in our lives. There's so many things that have meaning to us, so many things we enjoy, whether it be the things we wear, the TV that we touch. We enjoy the plant that sits on our desk. We enjoy the hibiscus. We enjoy the sun that gives it light. We like the water can that waters it. There's so many little things that go into that we just have to remind ourselves. Because it's not like you're a horrible person for forgetting that. It's totally normal. It's totally fine. There's so much, there's enough bad shit out there for you to, have to beat yourself up over stuff. There's too much other bad shit to focus on. I guess in a way, I think that's very derivative. But I think you kind of would understand my sentiment. Also, by the way, if you couldn't tell, never mind. I'll hold off from that. But basically, yeah, I guess the long story TLDR, making it short, would absolutely have to be we don't value enough. There's a lot more literal life and backstory that goes into literally everything we see that we don't like to love and appreciate more. You know? And I think that's something that I really had to focus on personally. And I also believe more should. That we should just be able to focus. Ah, fuck, how do I do this? Oh, right, it's here. There's so much in life that we refuse to actually give the time and day that it deserves. And there's too much shit that we overvalue. But that's totally fine because we're so used to it being the normal everyday thing. We develop habits. The mundane is totally fine and valid. Mundane is okay. Hi, Vesta. The mundane is fine. The mundane is normal. The mundane is good. And the mundane is really not that mundane. All the mundane has meaning and purpose, which are, again, buzzwords, which, fucking stupid. I hate those words so much. Meaning and purpose. They're so garbage. But there's so much more life to it than we appreciate. And I just think you should just go out and spend time at Animal Crossing appreciating the little grass tiles, all the little triangles, every little step that falls behind you when you walk on the sand. Because, are you going to see this a lot of times? Yes. But is it still not impressive? Does it still feel useless? We have to give time to give it its recognition. I think I gotta cut myself off there, or else this is gonna be way too long. But yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day if you are listening to this. Clearly my parents are, as you can hear them walking upstairs. But yeah. Have a good one. Take some time out. You can slow your day down. That's valid.